Thank you for joining me for this acrylic painting tutorial. Please check the description box below. It'll have a list of all the materials I used for this painting. So I'm using a 9x12 gesso board by Ampersand, and I've coated it in a layer of it's a golden carbon black fluid acrylic, and I let that dry, and I'm going in with the area that I want to have the most glow. I'm starting with raw sienna, and then as I work my way out, I'm adding VanDyke Red and red oxide. And then towards the corners, I'll start adding in just a little bit of the carbon black. I really just want to make sure I don't have any hard lines or any hard brush strokes. And then I will go through with a blending brush and smooth all of that brush texture out. And this doesn't have to be perfect. This is just the first layer. We do many more layers on top of this. And once I have that done, I take a old toothbrush with raw sienna and a lot of water, and I start adding in some directional splatters. I really am trying to start from the center of the glow and angle my brush in different ways that it would look like the splatter is coming out of that area. And then let that dry completely and go in with some pure titanium white in the very center. And I add in some raw sienna as I work my way out. Again, not looking for any harsh lines at this point. The striations that you see, those are perfectly fine for right now. We end up glazing over and adding a lot more layering on top of that. So to have these kind of distinct lines, they just add a little bit of motion in the background. And really that's all that is this is just the background layer that I'm beginning to lay down kind of the glow on top of our sparks. And as I work my way out, I'm adding some more of that pure raw sienna and then a little bit of the VanDyke Red, some red oxide. And really towards the edges, I just want a soft glow. So I am using a filbert brush, and that allows me to kind of maintain some soft edging. And everything is working its way out from that center white area that you see. So make sure that all of your lines, any streaks that you're putting in there, they all work out of that center area in a circular shape. And only the very center has the pure white, as my camera isn't picking up the yellow that I added into around the edges of it. So just keep in mind that you don't want this entire center to be just pure white. You do want to add in some of that yellow, and then as it shifts out a little bit farther, you add in a little bit more red or orange, and then as it shifts even farther is when you'll add in more of your background color, which is the VanDyke Red, or you could use red oxide. And once that has dried that white center, I go in with my Holbein Luminous Yellow. If you don't have any of the Holbein Luminous series, you can substitute any of those for Cad Yellow or Cad Orange for this painting. So after that had dried, I'm just going in with some luminous yellow and some luminous orange as I work my way out, and glazing over some of those lighter areas just to create a little bit more vibrancy and a softer edge to it. And for this, I'm using a scrumbler brush, and there's no water added to the brush. I'm really just picking up a very small amount of paint and dry brushing over some of those lighter areas that I want to be a little bit more vibrant. And I do the same thing with the white. I keep applying, making sure I get the coverage that I want. We are trying to cover over this dark background with white, and although white is very opaque, it does take a few coats to really cover a really dark background. So keep that in mind that you might have to do that a few times. Once I get that in, I'm taking my red oxide, and with a ruler and a angle brush, I'm just going in and adding in some directional lines. Again, all coming out of the center. I'm not bringing that red oxide color all the way to the inside of the white area, the very center. It's too dark of a color to put right in that center. Naturally, it would become lighter as I got to the center. And then I'm just going in with a small round brush and just adding in some little ticks, some little lines of like the ends of the fireworks, where the sparks will be. All of this that I'm doing right now is actually just all background noise for the brighter firework areas or the sparks that we put over the top. So these really don't get seen a whole lot. It just adds a dimension. It creates part of the form to let you know that it's receding and it's a circular object. And when you're using this round brush to get some finer lines, it's best to add quite a bit of water to that. That helps the paint not go on quite so thick, and you can get those nice, clean, fine lines. And like I was saying earlier, towards the center, coming out of the where we're using the red oxide for those lines, I am lightening that up a little bit because naturally those are closer to the light, so they would be a little bit lighter. Just trying to create a smooth transition. Then I'm using the same technique just without the ruler, and I'm just kind of putting in some sporadic yellow lines. So this is just a mixture of my Luminous yellow, a little bit of the raw sienna and titanium white mixture, and just creating another layer for the fireworks. I will end up glazing over this. So if you make it, even if you use pure white, as long as you're going to glaze over it, it will be just fine. And I drew this image out with a pastel pencil. You can use chalk if you prefer. The only thing I don't recommend using would be a graphite pencil. For one, you wouldn't see it on this dark background, and for two, it does tend to show through any of the acrylic paint that you use, and it will blend and mix with it. So it's highly recommended not to use that. So if you can get just a lighter colored pastel pencil, that would be your best bet. And I'm just making sure I have a lot of movement in the fireworks. So I'm adding all of these little dots and little lines, just really sporadic and chaotic. And that's kind of the look that I'm going for. Generally, fireworks aren't super structured, so I wanted to make sure I just had some commotion going on. And I'm going in again with another layer. This time I'm using the Cad Orange to splatter, just adding a little bit of variation in the splatter color, and still trying to start from the center of the firework and direct it outwards from there. Once I get that done, I'm taking a Posca pen, which is just an acrylic marker, and this is a fine tipped Posca pen. You don't have to use that brand. You can use any acrylic marker for this, but it does give you nice fine lines, and they have a variety of different colors you could use. I just went with white and chose to glaze over it, so you'll see that in a minute. It does give you really nice fine lines, so it will look a little bit cleaner of a look. If you're not wanting your firework to really resemble straight lines like that and just kind of want maybe a rounded kind of a firework, you could just use a brush for that and it would be fine. So I'm going in and adding the tips of the firework, the sparkle areas, and with that Posca pen, and it's great for this. It makes it really easy. I don't have to reload a brush. Like I said, I'm just using the pure white one, and I'll glaze over this with different colors in a minute. Before you do glaze, you want to make sure that this Posca pen has dried completely, or it will lift off. So give it a few minutes, make sure it has dried completely, and then you can put your glaze over the top of that. And you'll notice that I'm doing all different lengths. They are all coming out of the center, but keeping it different lengths so that I have shorter ones that maybe appear to the viewer as if it's pointing directly at them. If you did just all of the longer ones, it would become a little bit flat. The object wouldn't appear rounded, it would be more of a flat object. So you can see now I'm glazing over with some Luminous orange. You could use Cad orange for this if you didn't have the Luminous series. I'm not being super precise. I'm not making sure I go over just any of the white. In fact, I wanted a little bit to extend into the darker areas, so it created a little bit of a glow behind some of those sparks. And I don't have a lot of water mixed with my brush because I do want the vibrancy that it has. If you do mix a lot of water with your brush, you're going to want to go over it again, more than likely once it's dried, because it will become a little bit too transparent. And this is the Luminous yellow that I'm using now. I'm making sure I have a nice variation between the Luminous yellow and the Luminous orange, and kind of just mixing those colors up a little bit. Some of them have both colors on it. Again, going over the spark ends, making sure that I do carry a little bit over into the black background of that. That way it creates a nice realistic glow. And if you don't get the vibrancy that you're looking for on the first go, you can always do that process again. You can either try to layer just another color on top of that. So if I use the Luminous yellow, I could add another coat of the Luminous yellow to try to up the vibrancy. Or if it's still not getting to where you want, you'll just want to repeat the Posca pen and go over it again with some white and a little bit thicker paint to cover over the top of that, and that'll give you the vibrancy that you're looking for. And you can do as many of these lines as you want. It doesn't have to resemble mine. Your firework could be a completely different shape. Like I said, the lines could maybe take a turn instead of a straight firework like this one. So you can really make it however you want, and you can have as many of these. The more that you do have, the more realistic it's going to look. But I figured that with as many as I have in there, and I do add a few more, with as many as I have in there, it looks realistic enough. You get the idea that it is a firework. Really what you're after is trying not to create any sort of pattern with this. You really want to make sure that it is very, very non-structured, very sporadic. You don't want anything that resembles any kind of pattern. They generally don't explode that way, so having any sort of pattern will kind of throw off the look completely. And here I'm just adding some shorter ones so that it appears like these are closer to the viewer, maybe facing the viewer more. And throughout this painting, I hardly leave any pure white areas, mainly just in this very center. Even that has some of that luminous yellow in it, so it's not any pure white. So anytime I do lay down a pure white, it is solely for glazing to get the maximum vibrancy that I can. And using the glazing technique is really, it's extremely easy to, because you don't have to be quite as precise when you're going back over with your colors. So if you are unsure about creating this, painting this image, the glazing techniques, you could start with that from the beginning and just start with pure white and then glaze all of your colors on top of that, and that would be perfectly fine as well. Again, adding another layer of the splatter. This is just an old toothbrush. You could use a fan brush, any stiff bristled brush with paint mixed with a lot of water. That will work. So once I finish with the firework, I move on to the bottle and the cork. And I'm doing the glazing technique again, starting with the brightest areas that I want, adding in some pure titanium white, not mixed with a lot of water, so there's hardly any water in that mixture. And I am trying to cover up this dark background, so I carry it over the label so that I can get a nice glow on that area. And to the glass part of the bottle, it looks like it's black on my camera, and I apologize for that. However, it is a mixture of Hooker's green and Mars black. So they're very little bit of, or not Mars black, carbon black. Very little bit of the carbon black, however, just to give it a green hue. And you'll see a little bit more of that as I start to build up the layers, that there is a green hue to that. So with a little bit of raw sienna, once that area has completely dried, I'm just going through and kind of putting in just a base coat for this. It doesn't have to be a perfectly even coat. I'm really just looking to lay down some color so that I can lay some more on top and get the coverage of that dark background that I'm looking for. As I work my way to the top, I'm adding a little bit more of that luminous yellow just to amplify that glow area. I know that it is, the top of the bottle is closer to the firework glow, so it is going to naturally be a little bit lighter. And once that area on the mouth of the bottle has dried, I go in with my luminous yellow and start adding in some of that glow to the top of the bottle. I did want to add some warmth back into this, so I did pick up a little bit of the red oxide and added it to the bottle. It really wasn't in my reference photo, but I felt like it needed it just to tie everything together. So now I'm kind of repeating the same process on the cork here. Started with the luminous yellow, and as I work my way out, adding some of the orange to that and the red oxide as I work my way up away from the light. And you can do as many layers of this as needed to kind of portray the illusion that the cork is glowing. And I chose not to write anything on the label here. However, I thought about it, and you can write, you know, the year on there in celebration of New Year's if you wanted. You could write the year and a last name. You could write, you know, mimic a champagne bottle label if you'd prefer. I just left it kind of blank. I wanted the main focus to be more of the firework. So now I'm just taking some pure titanium white and just amplifying some of the areas. You can see that the area that I use the titanium white on is much smaller than I did before, and that's just to really amplify very particular areas. And after I had put in that raw sienna, I decided I wanted a little bit more of a glitter or shimmer effect, so I used the copper from Liquitex Basics, and I just apply a coat of that. The camera makes it look very light, however in person it's very shimmery, but the camera just picks up the light portion of that. And I do still add shading to that, so it looks like I'm covering it completely. I do go in with a little bit of the red oxide and burnt umber to kind of add a little bit more form to it. But if you didn't want a shimmery label, you could skip this step and stick with the original colors used. Just creating some lightness again with the luminance yellow, just amping up some of those particular areas that I laid down the titanium white, just to pull those into the light a little bit more. If you guys are enjoying this video and want to see others that I upload, go ahead and hit like and subscribe, and it'll notify you of upcoming videos. As well as if you have any questions or just comments, ways that I could improve my videos, go ahead and put them in the comment box below, and I'd be glad to take a look at those and respond to any questions. So now this part of the painting is just really, I'm using a smaller brush and I'm really just adding some final touches, some final little details, nothing dramatic at this point, but just cleaning up some edges. And if you do have any pastel left over after from your drawing, once this has completely dried, just take a wet paper towel and gently wipe off any excess pastel. Comes off very easily. And if you guys choose to use to try this tutorial, you can tag me in it using the hashtag BozArtTutorials. I would love to see it. And like I said, if you guys have any questions regarding this painting or any previous paintings that I've done, I'd be happy to answer those for you. I look forward to seeing you guys all next week and for the new year. And I really appreciate everyone watching, liking, and subscribing. Thanks, guys, and have a great day.